I'm a big believer in separation of powers, or the idea that we have three branches of government. The beauty of our system is that it is a check and balance on the other branches, and so the legislative branch, which I was a part of, has its say on policy and on budget. And so when we talk about the governor's legacy, all laws that were passed, and many of them during my watch as speaker with my colleagues, but there are limits to what a governor can do. Some of those emergency orders I'm certain I would support. Certainly after a hurricane, there's always an emergency order. That's appropriate. Where I think there needs to be some reform is in the statute. I think there's some potential for mischief if someone were to declare a climate emergency or a gun crisis emergency. You can't just name an emergency and make it so. In the case of immigration, I do think we have an emergency. I think it's been so mishandled for so long that the governor was right to initiate it. Whether having it today or not is appropriate, I think it is today. Whether it is this time next year or the following year depends on how successful we are in reining in the problem. As I said, I think at some point then it kind of starts to return to some degree of normality. So I'm a huge proponent of parental rights. I was a champion of universal school choice in education, where every parent has the right to choose the school that best suits their children's needs. We also passed a bill for medical freedom to protect people who were getting fired or not getting hired because they didn't want to take the COVID vaccine, which had a lot of some challenges with its safety. And so on the question of mandates, I want parents to have full information. I want them to be able to participate with their pediatrician and have that dialogue. And I think most parents, like me, I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, are going to look at vaccines like polio and measles and say, that's an important vaccine for me to take. But the vaccines that I took as a young child, 10 or 12 now, are 50, 60 in number, and are happening oftentimes together. So a kid may get 4 or 5 shots at one sitting. We need to determine, is that safe? And I want to see 2025 science. We should always be open to answering the objections of many parents in this state that are concerned about whether that's safe for their children to have that soon in life, whether a shot like a rotavirus, where you're going to get sick, but it's not life-threatening, is something that a parent wants to undertake given the risks. And that's a choice for a parent to make and with their physician. And I think physicians will point out the benefits of vaccines, which have saved millions of lives. And so I'm in no way, shape, or form anti-vaccine. My kids have been vaccinated. But I think it's more important that parents are in that the driver's seat with pediatricians rather than the CDC or the government, dictating what they will or won't have.
I mean, and that includes polio, measles, things that are already mandated. I mean, those two, do you think would you sign a law to roll back those mandates?
I think parents should be in the driver's seat on that question, but I think when they chat with their pediatrician, there will be a very high usage. And you see in countries in Europe where they don't have mandates, it's not a situation where people aren't getting polio vaccines. And as governor, I think the important part, and where I might differ a little bit, is what I just said, is I think vaccines are very important. I think they save lives, and you have to weigh the cost and the benefit. And there are vaccine injuries, and we need to be open and honest about that and examine the science. But also there's benefit. And so on things like polio and this type of thing, as governor, I would speak to the benefits of those and would not be out talking about how vaccines are bad for you and you shouldn't take them. Well, I think voters are going to ask at least 3 things. Who do I trust? Who's got the leadership experience to actually be governor of the state of Florida? And you can look at my record and who's delivered results. And you want to find somebody who can solve tomorrow's problems by going to someone who's made a big effort and been successful in delivering on yesterday's problems. And so I have 20 years in the military. I served in 2 wars. I was a state attorney and prosecutor going after violent criminals and defending the rights of victims, and a Speaker of the House for 2 years in what was deemed to be one of the most conservative, frankly, and consequential 2 years in Florida history. And so if you look at the resume, you look at the record, and then you will conclude that the people that are out there, that I'm the right guy to be the next governor, and also solve the problems of the future. And so I will be talking about affordability. I will be talking about infrastructure, not just roads and bridges, but environmental infrastructure that I played a big role in with my colleagues to protect land conservation, to ensure we have water quality. We've made lots of investments there, and I'll focus on the 20, 30-year future, where we're going to be as a state, and not just focus on what is in the news today. And so if you want a governor who can get things done, go to one who has already gotten things done.